Sonic is a lot of things to a lot of people. To some, he's a simple blue hedgehog that likes to go fast. To others, he's a role model. And for a lucky few, he's their sleep paralysis demon. Right now, he's the main character of today's video. I'm DPadGamer, and in this one, we'll be looking at a bunch of glitches in Sonic Mania. So, of course, we'll start off with good old Green Hill Zone by looking at a couple of little quirks. First off, if you walk into a spring that sends you back along the ground, hold down in the opposite direction of where you were rolling, Sonic will briefly become a mime, pushing at nothing. You could also walk up to a set of spikes, start charging up a spin dash and hold backwards, which will make him slide. Ooh! Okay, I know those are really mundane, so here's something else. Supersonic is the Blue Hedgehog's very own Super Saiyan transformation, but in this one, it's actually possible to have the transformation interrupted in such a way that he'll gain all the spiky, hair-wiggling powers of Supersonic, but keep his usual blue attire. Now, before moving on, let's quickly hop into this special stage. As you no doubt know, in these you're supposed to run laps around the track, collecting blue orbs to increase your speed and rangs to add time to the clock, all in hopes of finally catching that emerald-stealing robot. Instead, it's actually possible to basically strafe jump to catch it way faster without ever needing to leave Mach 1. This can be done by turning, jumping, and holding the opposite direction where you turned. So if you turn to the right, you'd be holding left until you swing around to that side and then change to holding right on the D-pad. I'm not describing it that great, and I can't actually do it that well, but as you can see, it's effective nonetheless. And for speedrunners, this tech lets them finish every special stage in actual seconds. Now for Chemical Plant Zone, where the dreaded Mean Bean Machine can be found at the end of Act 2. I call it dreaded because I'm garbage at playing Puyo Puyo, but for speedrunners, it's a serious waste of time. Literally. As such, a number of skips have been found to bypass it completely. In Encore mode, where you're able to switch back and forth between characters whenever both are on the ground, it's possible to spawn your partner inside of the ceiling, swap to them, and jump repeatedly to bypass sections as needed. This is known as partner skip. Knuckles is also capable of skipping the Puyo section, but without the need of a partner. All you need to do is perform a super glide off of the item box, which gives you just enough height to enter the corner while gliding. Normally you can never come to a stop in this part, but as it happens, the pipe doesn't have collision from this side, so you can jump through and walk through the booster from the wrong side, which sends you shooting off as if through a pipe, but into the great unknown. If you were solo, you'd have to wait about a minute as Knuckles wraps all the way around and collides with the capsule. Speaking of screen wraps, I wanted to take this moment to shout out Sonic Mania speedrunner Elise Noon, who helped me wrap my head around some of this game's tech, especially when related to Knuckles. That said, I won't make you wait the whole 67 seconds, but if you're playing as Knuckles and Knuckles when doing the skip, your partner can activate it to save a bit of time. You could also skip the Puyo machine in regular old Mania mode with Sonic and Tails, but that involves a way more complex strategy that requires its own explanation video. And as it happens, you can watch just such a video that I'll link in the description made by JoeyBaby69. He's one of the other wonderful Sonic Mania speedrunners who helped me with the research for this video, so big shout out to there. All that said, after skipping Puyo with the Sonic and Tails method, you could totally have Tails finish the level off screen, hop into the Mean Bean Machine and die, and still move on to Studio Opposite Zone Act 1, because why not? Now, speaking of Tails and screens, it's possible to clip yourself into the ground as Tails by using this monitor to the left of the start of Studio Opposite Zone Act 1. This also has the fun side effect of making Tails not alive. This works because while flying, if something pushes Tails down, he'll ignore the ground's collision. So you can do this wherever you want, but this is just a good place to do it. Following that train of thought, Studio Opposite Zone is also a great place for Knuckles to clip through some stuff. These bumpers near the large funnel in Act 1 are at such an angle that Knuckles can slide on into the space between the bumper and the ceiling, which causes him to eventually rapidly shake and then shoot off at extreme speeds. There's definitely a building up speed for 12 hours joke to be made there. In this level, you could also initiate a glitch that we'll call Ghost Mode. Playing in Encore mode, if you take damage that'll kill you and at the same time hit a bumper or something that interrupts the animation, you'll no longer interact with objects or the screen boundaries, hence Ghost Mode. With Ghost Mode active, you can actually fly backwards past the left side of the stage, which will cause your character to wrap around to the other side of the level and then hit the signpost blind, making for a very neat skip. And just like with the clip in Chemical Plant Zone shown before, a large skip can be done with this item monitor in Studio Opposite Zone Act 2. Now, Flying Battery Zone is home to a neat little quirk. So when approaching the boss fight in Act 1, it's possible to carefully walk towards the center, which loads Eggman, and then move back to the left, which, after a moment, unloads him. Now, the boss music will play, but Eggman is nowhere to be seen, and thus the boss fight just doesn't happen? As Joey showcases in his video, after roughly 18 minutes, Eggman will come spawning back in and immediately initiate the boss fight. It's pretty weird. I guess you don't always need fancy tricks to make games weird out, which, speaking of, while running through Flying Battery Zone Act 2 as Knuckles, you can get to this section which is in the upper right part of the level. By flying out of bounds to the right, you can easily wrap around all the way to the far left side of the stage, which for the most part is just a giant chunk of wall. So you can't see it, but Knuckles is now trapped inside of an invisible box. There's lots of mimery going on today. You could also do something productive with Knuckles Glide, if that's what you want to do. After reaching this section, the wind is supposed to act as a barrier preventing you from bypassing the boss. Knuckles, on the other hand, can get to this spot as Super Knuckles and then start gliding into the wind. This works because Knuckles gains momentum the longer he flies, so he can quickly overcome the barrier and access the capsule without fighting the boss at all. Now in Press Garden Zone Act 1, here's a bit of swag you can do next time you beat Shiversaw. After he's defeated and clears the screen, run over to the far right and look left. As the screen transitions into Act 2, your character will moonwalk into place. It's completely useless, but it looks neat. As for Act 2 itself, you can actually skip fighting against Heavy Shinobi using two different methods. First off, while playing in Encore mode, you can use Tails to fly up above the area that normally lock the camera for the boss fight, which lets you go right on over to the capsule. As for a Tails only method, it's possible to get up above the stage using Tails super form, and then carefully fly above the stage off screen until you could eventually safely drop down next to the capsule. From there we have Stardust Speedway Zone, where I want to look at a glitch that can no longer happen due to changes made to the Metal Sonic boss fight. Okay, so originally, he'd spawn a large spiked wall on the left side of the screen, which would then chase after the player. While I couldn't find a clip of the glitch initiating, as you can see in this footage, Metal Sonic could get stuck on the screen after dying. From what I understand, this was due to him hitting the spiked wall during his death animation. Very spooky, I know. Now, we're going to continue that morbid train of thought right on to Hydro City Zone. As you can see here, if you die while playing in Encore mode by touching the spikes at the same time as you land on the spinning cylinder, you'll also spin forever. Now, Sonic Mania has its own time stop glitch, which also requires a death. As you can see in this clip, it used to be possible to initiate the glitch by simply turning into Supersonic just as you're about to drown. This, of course, stops time, but also allows you to pass through certain objects and even move while the game is paused. Unfortunately, the Sonic Mania Plus update made the glitch impossible. However, there is another way to stop time which can be done in Hydro City Zone Act 1. If you get grabbed by this enemy just before landing, it'll let you enter the land of the unliving all the same. This also lets you straight up skip the boss as Tails. You could also skip the boss as Knuckles by simply turning super while in the sinking maze. The transformation briefly makes you stay in place, so the train just keeps moving and you clip inside. And then you're free to climb up, and away from there. Oh, and while we're here, do you want to see a roller coaster? Check this out. From there, we have the Rootin' Tootin' Mirage Saloon Zone. It, of course, starts off with a awful auto-scroller atop the tornado. Before the game was patched on the Switch version, it was actually possible to crash the game by simply performing a drop dash while on the tornado. Thankfully, it's been patched, so you can drop dash right into a death as intended. Somewhat related, during the tornado section, you'll be dropped onto the train. If you run along it until you reach this spot, performing a normal spin dash is totally fine. A peel out, however, will actually cause Sonic to get crushed instantly. That said, Mirage Saloon Zone is also a great place to activate the ghost mode we looked at from Studiopolis Zone, though if you defeat the boss while your primary character is cosplaying Danny Phantom, you'll soft lock the game. That's not unsettling at all. Onwards to Maroon Saloon Act 2, this spot has a fun little thing. So if you take the red spring and jump just as you reach the end of the ceiling, you can actually get your character to stand in the spot upside down. Holding either up or down on the D-pad will maintain your upside downness. This is purely a cosmetic glitch which goes away as soon as you move, but it's still neat, and it also works with every character because why not? Now as for the boss, like a number of the other zones, you can skip it, but this one requires your partner. And it also all happens off screen, but basically you manipulate your partner into falling down into the boss room, and then with some careful inputs make them run to the right and land on the capsule. Leaving the desert behind, things get a little bit spicier in Oil Ocean Zone Act 2. This level has a pretty interesting way to skip the boss. It's done so smoothly in this clip that it's hard to tell, but you can actually manipulate Tails into standing on a set of terrain that's technically in the background as you move Sonic onto the foreground layer. When he jumps and grabs onto Tails, it transfers the background layer property to Sonic, which allows you to then freely float past a giant chunk of the stage. While initiating the glitch takes place in a different spot, Knuckles can do pretty much the same thing, but with way more precise execution needed. So you see, after getting to this section where you begin the fateful final glide, the only terrain that you can actually land on is either the capsule far below you or the oil below that. Runners only frame of reference to help guide their fall as the background, but if Knuckles misses the mark, he's incapable of jumping high enough to reach the capsule, which is pretty rough. Oh, and while we're here, if for some reason you're playing as Mighty, you can have a bit of fun by placing him right on the edge of a capsule as you finish the level. When he goes to do his little victory animation, he'll go leaping off to the side very quickly. After that, we have Lava Reef Zone, which is home to a fun cosmetic glitch. Following the boss fight at the end of Act 1, you can take the elevator down to the Crystalline Act 2. However, with the right timing, if you skip the cutscene just as the screen fades to black on the elevator, you can actually cause the game to keep that blackened overlay throughout the rest of the level. Of course, this makes it really hard to play, but at the same time, it's a pretty nice sight. Metallic Madness Zone is home to a few neat, interesting glitches, but it also has an arguably detrimental glitch. So you see, this stage is special in that it has sections where you can jump into an area in the background, which makes your character much smaller because you're like far away. While in Encore mode, if your partner was in the background as you enter the boss fight, when they tag in, they'll be extremely small, at least visually. Their hitbox is still the same, which can make it a bit harder to tell visually if you're about to be crushed or not. This game also has a glitch that lets you have a giant partner character. The methods used to achieve this vary, but they all involve somehow interrupting your partner's return back onto the stage. Now, we've finally reached Titanic Monarch Zone, so here's something fun. If you stop being alive somewhere in the stage where you're high above one of the teleporters, your lifeless corpse will actually trigger the portal during the death animation. That said, this level also has a boss skip, which works for every character. However, the strategy and difficulty varies depending on the character. Going in order of easiest to hardest, in this spot Knuckles has to simply glide into the sloped ceiling, jump upwards, and then strut his stuff right to the end. The rest have to use the psychedelic gravity orb to get into the right spot, and then uncurl with the right timing to get clipped into the ceiling. Tails can do this with some precision, but his smaller hitbox makes it easier than the rest. Sonic's clip is frame perfect and requires the lightning shield. Ray comes in at number 2, requiring a perfect glide into the corner, and by far the lamest character, Mighty needs to be super and have at least 3 goats sacrificed to the spirit and gods on a moonless night, and also a frame perfect input to clip through. All that said, from what I understand, this glitch saves a lot of time, as much as 2 minutes, which is basically a millennia when it comes to a speedrun. Now, following that, I'm basically required to completely ruin the momentum with one final useless glitch. You see, during the final boss fight against Eggman, if you accidentally or intentionally allow Tails to get grabbed by both hands at the same time, the fight will become soft-locked. Whoops! Now, it's important to know that this video really just scratched the surface of this game's glitches, but I think we covered the broad strokes, so we're gonna end it here. Hey, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and maybe subscribe. By the way, PS, right around when this video went live, the channel passed 180k subscriber, which is pretty dang swell, so thank you for that. Also, big thanks to my channel members, with especially big thanks to Christique Huntress and Pseudonymous for being super fans. I'll see you in the next video.